Okay, so now is the time where you need to be in a really well ventilated area, and you need to have your gloves on. You could use dishwashing gloves or nitrile gloves, latex, whatever you want. I have one hand without it so I can control the camera. And in this case, what we typically have at school, we have the ball ground that you have to heat your plate and then roll it out with a brayer. But, in the event that you're using liquid hard ground, which I sort of prefer to do for the sugar lift method because you're less likely to disturb your marks this way, is to use something like the Graphic Chemical Universal Hard Ground or something similar. Okay. Historically, these are impossible to open because they get crusted and they dry. So this one hadn't been opened for a long time, so I got this wrench, and it was too slippery to open with just the wrench, so I got one of these jar opener. It's the same kind of material that you use for padding shelves or putting under a throw rug or something like that. Okay, this mesh rubber. And then I tightened it down real tight, and then I was able to just twist and just lift it right off. Okay, so that's a little tip so that you don't have to fight the can. What I did was I poured a little bit into another plastic container so that I don't accidentally pour too much. As soon as I pour it, I want to put the lid back on, okay, because I don't want that stuff evaporating and getting into the air in my workspace. Okay, so this stuff, if you can smell it, it is off-gassing, okay, and that means that you're inevitably getting some of that into your bloodstream through inhaling it. Okay, so I'm gonna put that to the side. So I've got, a small controlled amount here. Now what I'd like to do is, I put some plastic sheeting down on this plastic folding table that I use. I also have a plastic tray, so you could use a kitty litter tray or, a baking pan that you're never going to use to cook with anymore. I found a little piece of a grate from a shelving unit that I had. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my other glove on now because I'm going to need to use two hands. I also have a couple of brushes. So I've got this foam brush. I like this one because it takes, some heavy chemicals. It won't last for a really long time because it does deteriorate, but I can clean it out with Gamsol, let it squeeze it out, let it dry, and then I can use it again as long as the hard ground doesn't harden in the foam. The same thing would go for a paintbrush. You could use a house painting brush. You could use one of these soft Hake brushes, a water brush. You want something that is soft enough that it's not going to really drag and disturb that tacky sugar lift ground that you've painted on. And so now what I'm going to do is, there are a few different approaches to this. You could just start dipping your brush and painting it on. I'm going to do the method where I sort of pour it on, just starting at the top. I'm angling my plate up a little bit. I'm going to pour it on here at the top. And I'm going to just let it roll down the plate. Obviously it has more drag in certain areas where there's thick deposits of the sugar lift. But I'm gonna do the best I can by just rolling it around like this. It's gonna stay sort of contained by the edges of the plate. So sometimes I do this before I even file the plate at all. Then, I'm going to let it cascade down a little bit further. It does get a little messy. And if I wanted to, I could actually prop it there and just pour a little bit more. And the nice thing is that it's pouring into this tray, so it's not going on a table, it's staying contained. I could actually gather what drips down and I could pour it back into a container as long as my tray is nice and clean and I don't contaminate it with anything like dust or